That's the beep. Call the meeting to order. Welcome to the February 6, 2024 Town Council meeting, the regular meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Gupton?
Here.
Mayor
Here.
Councilmember Behringer? Here. Councilmember Dellinger?
Here.
Councilmember Singleton?
Here.
And Councilmember Matthews?
Here.
Thank you. And it's my turn to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please stand and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And it's my turn to do the invocation. And I'm going to go back in time to when I was in the third grade at what's now the Old School Commons and the GPAC in the third grade. And my teacher, Miss Bass, she often started the class with the thought for the day. And she had many different thoughts, and sometimes it was a quotation, sometimes a line of poetry, or just an idea she had to share with us. And my thought for today is that we should continue to focus on the things that bring us together and not the things that drive us apart. It doesn't take long to find a reason that you don't agree with somebody. I just had a recent experience where two of my good friends were passionately pursuing the same goal, but they were on slightly different tracks and they were making no progress. I said, man, I just thought to myself, if they could just focus on what they have in common, miracles would be done. So let's try to do that. Look for the positive. And remember, Garner's a great place to be and a great place to be positive. There you go. Thank you. So with that, we'll get into petitions and comments. And I'm required by law to read this particular portion out because it can contain some important information. This portion of the meeting is to receive comments from the public on items that are not included in this agenda regarding matters, and this is the important part, regarding matters that are germane to town policies or business or subjects within the town council's real or apparent jurisdiction. This is important. We've had other town councils that have lots of discussions about things that have nothing to do with town, so I'm glad we've got this in ours. Individuals or group spokespersons sign up with the council, with the clerk prior to start. Board is interested in hearing your concerns but may not take action or deliberate. Topics requiring further investigation will be referred to the appropriate town officials or staff and may be scheduled for future agenda. And now I'm going to ask the town clerk if anyone has signed up for tonight.
Yes, sir.
Okay, no speakers tonight. So we'll move along to the adoption of the agenda. And does a council member have a motion for adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Okay. Boy, we got everybody in favor. Can I get a second? All at once, a second all at once. Thank you. I think you was Mr. Matthews made the motion. Mr. Singleton seconded.
One or the other. We got to take
There you
it.
go.
I thought Mr. Vance might have said that we said it in stereo.
We sound alike on the...
It was very harmonious. Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? It's unanimous. We adopt the agenda. And we have a couple of fabulous presentations tonight, and we're going to start with the MLK Dream-In-Action Award. And I believe we have Mr. Dwight Rogers representing MLK to make the presentations. Would you please come to the podium and help us understand the award we're giving tonight? While Dwight is making his way to the podium, I'm going to give him a huge plug for his performance at the MLK. I was there this year, and it was certainly one of the highlights. So, Mr. Rogers, thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you, too. Good evening, y'all. My name is Dwight Rogers, as the mayor said, and I'm the co-chair of the Martin Luther King Celebration Committee. And I want to thank all of you for coming today. And I want to thank the police department for their escorting us during the process of the program. And I would like to thank everyone that participated and had a great deal through the grace of God to celebrate this occasion. Today, or tonight I say, we would like, as the Martin Luther King Celebration Committee, we would like to award the Dream-In-Action Award to active citizens that have done an outstanding job to helping us throughout this year and previous years. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Wilma Dunstan to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor, Town Council. I'm Wilma Dunstan, the Secretary-Treasurer of the Dr. Martin Luther King Annual Celebration Committee. First of all, I want to thank the Mayor and the Town Council for your continuing support, as well as your presence at our celebrations. And we're most appreciative of your funding. Every year, the committee has presented a Dream-In-Action Award to citizens, organizations, or groups in recognition of outstanding service that benefits the well-being of others. So our first 2024 recipient is Tony Lucas. As a college student, Tony Lucas attended the missions team meetings at his home church, Garner United Methodist, and shared his inspiration for hosting a community event to provide school supplies for those in need in a fun way that encourages students and builds excitement for the school year. Thus, the Back to School Bash was created under the amazing leadership of Tony as he plans, organizes, inspires, and serves those in our community who could use a little support and encouragement. He currently not only leads the Back to School Bash, but the entire church missions, which has projects year-round. Last year, the Back to School Bash served over 787 students and 300 grateful families. Tony, will you come forward? And Mayor, would you please come as well? Okay. On behalf of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Annual Celebration Committee, we present to you this plaque to honor Dr. King's legacy. Through service together, we are one step closer to the beloved community of Dr. King's dream. And I'll read just a little of what the plaque says. It says, for the vision and compassionate spirit to serve and host an event to help prepare, encourage, and empower students for the new school year, and to assist families who may not be able to provide the needed resources. So congratulations. Would you like to,
Thank you so much.
would you like to say a minute? I get a hug. Okay. Go for a handshake. All right. Our second recipient is the nationally recognized Town of Garner's Communication Division. Broadly, the Communications Division oversees production and distribution of public information, directs media and public outreach efforts, and serves as content producer and editor for a variety of print, digital, video, and other communication products created by the town. The accolades have been numerous over the past several years, which includes in 2020, 2021, and 2022, Excellence in Communications Awards from NC City and County Communicators, and then a National First Place Savvy Award from the City County Communications and Marketing Association for a short animated informational video about the storm water bonds that were on the 2021 Garner municipal ballot. And the list goes on. So at this time, will Rick Mercer and Kyle Kettle please come forward? And the bios of Rick and Kyle are highly notable. Okay. A former staff member, Adam Carroll, filmed and edited the first virtual MLK celebration in 2021 at the height of the pandemic. In 2021, he joined Johnson County as his first ever public information director. And we know that there has to be good leadership behind the excellent work of this communications division. So we also would like for Rodney Dickinson to please come forward as well. And the award reads, this certificate is awarded to the Communications Department, Town of Garner, North Carolina, for 13 years of continuous coverage of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Annual Celebration and for the production and distribution of public information and other communication materials for the town. So congratulations to Rodney and your staff for such a wonderful job, especially to the Martin Luther King Celebration Committee.
Enjoy being a part of it.
Well, thank you
Y'all do
so
an excellent
much.
job on the promotion and putting that together. So, been very successful over the years. Oh, on the mic? I'm not getting no award. I have to say the speech.
You're behind the team, so.
Well, I just want to thank the MLK Award Committee for all the work you've done over the years. I know we had some times where it was virtual, but the message stayed the same, no matter virtual or in person, and we were just glad to be able to come back in person again, and had some outstanding youth there, a rendition of Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, just great. I don't know how you remember all of that, but and the inflection of the voice and everything, so just a great job, and I want to thank Rick and Kyle for all their hard work. They really make the town look good. They do a variety of things, and we're happy we could partner with the MLK committee. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Briefly, I would just like to thank everybody for what they do to help the community, because without our department and our council and doing things by the will of God every day, because we cannot make it without the help of the Lord, and we need to continue to follow his path each and every day. And I'd like to thank again the committee, town council, for helping us each year to do and make things happen for the MLK celebration. Again, I thank you, and y'all have a blessed night.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Well, that was great, but you should have been at the celebration. It was even better. And we have another outstanding group of award recipients tonight. And Chief Smith, you're going to have a hard time outdoing that show, but I'm sure you got some great stuff for us.
He leaves some big shoes to fill. Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight to recognize some officers within our department. I and members of my staff are well aware, as most of you are as well, of the great work that our officers do on a daily basis. But I think it's important to take advantage of opportunities like tonight to share not only with you all, but with our community, the selfless dedication and commitment to the community that our officers display on a daily basis. So I'm here tonight to honor and award and recognize 4 of our officers for a life-saving award, but I want to tell you about it first. So this occurred on September 25th of last year when officers from D Squad responded to the YMCA on Avisboro Road in reference to a code blue. As you know, a lot of times we never know what we're walking into. The call notes in CAD stated that a 70-year-old male had passed out, hit his head, and was unconscious. When Officer Mossbrook and Officer Cabrera arrived, they obtained the YMCA's AED machine and immediately started to apply the chest pads to the patient. The AED advised a shock was needed, and they administered the shock without hesitation. Officer Brooks, who was also on scene, began to perform CPR on the subject until EMS and fire arrived. And then Officer Lambert, who was also there, assisted with scene security and also with EMS and fire on scene to ensure that they could enter quickly and assist us with the life-saving measures. The subject survived the cardiac event and met with the officers later to show his appreciation. So I became aware of this, or received a call the day after this happened, from a fellow peer in law enforcement who works with another agency, and he called and he said, "Lori, I need to know who went to the YMCA last night." I said, "Okay." So I looked it up and I said, "Well, what's going on?" He said, "It was remarkable." He knew this individual personally who had collapsed while working out at the gym. and he and his wife had been in communication with him. His wife was actually there and witnessed everything. He went to the hospital, obviously, and the doctor said that had it not been for the quick actions of our officers who responded that day by administering the AED shock and then performing CPR, he would not have survived. So it was just a remarkable thing that they were there that day. So I do believe that God works, and this is an example of it. He uses our people to do good things. So I would like to call up Officer Phelan Brooks, Officer Daniel Lambert, Officer Jared Mossbrook, and Officer Andy Cabrera to the front to present them with a life-saving award and life-saving pin. Life-saving citation. This life-saving citation is hereby awarded to Officer Phelan Brooks. Citation is hereby awarded to Officer Andy Cabrera. Life-saving citation is here. I just wanted to say I'm so honored and so proud to get to work alongside these men and women. You all should be proud too to know that these are the individuals that serve you in your community. So thank you. I'll turn it over to you guys.
What more can you say? We take police for granted. We think about all the law enforcement things, and we tend to overlook the life-saving things that you do. But it's an honor for all of us to have you on our team, to have you in our community. You set such a high standard. You're so well respected. Thank you very much for all you do. Thank you. Thank you. And that brings us to the consent agenda. And I think there was no items that needed to be removed. Everybody passed the agenda as was stated there. So we will accept a motion to accept the consent agenda. And I'll look over this way.
So move.
And Mr. Vance moves, and the second is from Ms. Behringer. All in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. And we'll move along to the public hearings. We do read a little disclaimer here as well, a reminder that these agenda items are for annexations, and these are legislative hearings which do not require sworn testimony. However, persons interested in speaking must sign up with the clerk. Town staff will present a report followed by the applicant if they choose, and then persons supporting or opposing the application be recognized to speak. And we will start out with the first item on the agenda here, and we'll recognize Mr. Triesenberg to do the presentation tonight.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Gave my staff off for these. So for the first one tonight, we do have, let me just get to 2525 US Highway 70 East. And this property is owned by Garner Property QOZB LLC. It is a satellite annexation, so it's out down 70 towards Clayton. You see all the pertinent information there. Little over, just shy actually of 17 acres. And so here is the map, just to give you a quick orientation. Garner Business Park is right here. And then there were it was a development of 3 warehouse buildings that were developed here. We have some other activity going on in this general area as well. But per the requirement for hooking up to water and sewer, they were required to submit their annexation petition. And so if you're so inclined, there is an ordinance for you tonight to adopt to bring this into the corporate limits of Garner.
Thank you, Mr. Triesenberg. And are there any questions from the council members on this particular item? If there are none, we will close the public hearing. No further comments there. And I'll ask the council members for a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt ordinance 2024-5242.
Mr. Matthews made the motion. Mr. Singleton offers a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? And it passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Triesenberg. And I can only guess that you let your staff off for the evening and you're going to do the next presentation. And again, this is a voluntary contiguous annexation, and our presenter will be Mr. Triesenberg.
Yes, so this one is ANX 2308 for Timber Drive Associates LP. This is a property way at the terminus currently of Timber Drive East. Several years ago, we approved a project here for multifamily apartments and townhomes. Currently consists of 2 parcels. This, combined with a little bit of adjacent right-of-way, brings it up to a total of about 27.20 acres. Again, here you can see the site. We had the Aberley Solaire project over here. You have the 2 Aberley Place projects here. And then the intervening right-of-way actually between Greenfield Parkway and this part of Timber Drive. So again, if you're so inclined, they were required to submit their petition to connect to water and sewer. There is an ordinance for you to approve on this one as well.
Okay. Thank you. And again, these are projects that the council's been involved with and seen come up several different times. Are there any questions from the council on this particular item? Hearing none and none signed up to speak, I'll recognize the council to see if there's a motion to approve.
I move adoption of ordinance 2024-5243.
Second.
Mr. Vance made the motion, seconded by Mr. Singleton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by nay? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. And we move to the third item about an annexation, and we have Mr. Triesenberg for the presentation.
Again, ANX 2311, this is Garner 5 Industrial, so just about where we were for the first project. Al Goodrich is the owner, and we do have the property information there. This one includes about 1.8 acres of adjacent public right-of-way for a total of 7.14 acres. So this is on the south side in South Greenfield Park. So you see South Greenfield Parkway here, Waterfield Drive. And again, if so inclined, there's an ordinance for you to adopt, again required pursuant to connection to water and sewer.
Excellent. Again, another project that's been in the works for a long time in an area well known for doing this type of project. The council has seen this before. Does council have any questions for Mr. Triesenberg on this item? Hearing none and no one signed up to speak, I'll now see if a council member has a motion related to this agenda item.
Mayor, I move we approve ordinance 2024-5244.
Second.
Okay, that was a motion made by Mr. Singleton and seconded by Mr. Matthews, I think. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. None opposed. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and that brings us, let's see, Mr. Triesenberg, did you have another item? That brings us along to the new and old business. I believe we finished up the public hearings. First item on the new and old business is a zoning text amendment, technical corrections to the UDO. And amazingly, our presenter is Mr. Triesenberg.
Got me all night tonight. Not quite. Yes, so we do have this text amendment case coming back to you, having been to the Planning Commission for a review and recommendation. So it has been a little bit since you have seen this, but the updates in your staff report since you last saw it are given in green. So all of the previous edits were the same, should be the same as what you saw for the public hearing. Again, we did decide here, I think there's 5 of them, and I'll just highlight these. Rather, the option for trying to solve the MFA multifamily district and the inclusion of some type of single family, the most straightforward way to do that after talking with the legal department seemed to be just writing an exception into that rule so that the existing neighborhoods that are zoned MFA are not subject to the nonconformities clauses that would allow folks to continue to expand to their homes or put up an accessory structure. We do have setbacks in the table, so we do have that to fall back on for rules for them to follow, but at least it takes the nonconformity part out of the question so that folks won't face issues potentially with resales of their homes saying, hey, we're still conforming. So that was proposed to solve that. And then the other amendment then, since you first saw it, was originally we had an S here for special use permit in the table of permitted uses. So we took that back out, so that was now blank. The other 2 of the other 3 related to the indoor athletic or entertainment facility definition. Admittedly, in talking with the Planning Commission, this definition was very focused on amusements. I don't think it was really intended to be that way, but certainly a lot of the activities that followed, although you did have bowling alleys, were definitely on the amusement side of things. So we decided that the definition really needed to be expanded to be more clear. Staff has been defaulting to classifying these uses you see in green as indoor athletic or entertainment facilities anyhow, because it does tend to be the most similar use that we do have in the ordinance. So we thought we would clarify that. You'll see theaters was taken out because theaters are actually a separate use in the use table. So we wanted to fix that as well. And then we just added a clarification, though, that if it is more of a wellness type facility, whether it's your typical gym or a wellness center, that those and similar uses are treated under the gym, spa, and pool definition. So you'll see that changed both here in section 6.6.4 and also in the definitions chapter later on. And then I believe we just had one more change coming back from Planning Commission. And then that was again to agree, and Mr. Dellinger, I think you were the one that brought this up, residential dwelling units being redundant. So we did take that out, and Planning Commission agreed that that was a good idea. I apologize, there was one more. And then we did include the stub completion policy reference as a separate section, 8.3.12, so that after folks read through all the other street requirements, they do end and see this called out clearly as its own separate section. And other than that, like I mentioned before, there was the change here to the definition again in the definitions chapter. And so with that being said, we do have, again, an ordinance for you to consider for adoption to put all of these text amendments officially on the books, and certainly be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Triesenberg. Are there any questions from the council members on this ordinance? Mr. Dellinger.
Questions. Thanks for the information. Excuse me. So a question on the single-family detached, and is there a circumstance under which there could be an exception made for a mixed-use project or activity center? Would that have to go kind of above and beyond, and then to like the Board of Adjustments to do that? I mean, now we're kind of raising the bar. It's sort of permitted if they were to go a kind of a more difficult route, but if it were a really, really large project, I don't know.
Yeah, I think what we would recommend them, you can't go to the Board of Adjustment for a use variance, but what we would do is work with the applicant to carve out that piece where they might propose that, and just actually have them propose that as its own separate district as part of the overall project.
And 3 other quick questions. In the open space and recreational facilities, there's the changed language around, there's the term site-specific vesting plan. Is that, I don't believe that was ever originally in the UDO. I know what it means, but I think it might be helpful to even just define it in sort of the glossary in the back, just as, since I think this is the only place it appears in the document.
Yeah, I thought that there was another section where there was a reference to what qualified
Yeah,
early
it's
on.
a comment box.
Off to the
But
side
that
there.
is a term defined in state law, so we can add that in, just making it consistent with the 160D definition.
And then 2 other quick ones. On the stub completion policy, the wording, I have a wording change recommendation. I'll wait till you get it up there so everyone can see it.
There we are.
My only recommendation, the change of the language would be from time to time policy to establish objective circumstances under which, and change objective circumstances to guidelines, because I think even the definition of objective becomes subjective, and that way it gives you, the policy we have has some kind of subjective elements to it, and if that policy went away and you went back, then there'd be an argument over what an objective circumstance is. So I think guidelines sort of maintains the spirit of the flexibility of creating a policy. That's the only recommendation, just language-wise. So I'd like to add that to the notes in motion. This is a minor change. And then for my clarity, I'd forgotten the change on the vehicular surface area where it removed non-paved area and then became paved. What was it's been so long since we've seen this. What was the rationale for that again? I don't remember.
Yeah, so vehicular accommodation area includes both paved and non-paved parking facilities, and so the surface area is just exclusively the paved parts. So sometimes we have those overflow and kind of temporary parking areas that can be in a grass environment where they just put down some markers for the spaces. So that's the key difference between the 2 terms.
So removing the non-paved just takes away that as being anything that's needing the standards.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from council? Mr. Matthews?
I think we just alluded to some of it, but, with the stubbing, it's always been somewhat of an issue, and I'm just want to make sure we really got it defined so we don't have to beat that one again. So, especially with the growth that we're having in developments coming nearby existing developments, that because in the past it's been where they were required to do it, and neither side really wanted it for whatever reason. I understand that. Are we, as our policy, I was trying to read through this, but are we very clear on our policy on stubbing or required stubbing?
So I'll explain
It's a
how
tough
I
one.
understand it currently, and I'll let Ms. Jones chime in if needed. Currently, if there's a non-conforming street stub, that does need to be resolved somehow, whether it's connected or sometimes folks could put in a cul-de-sac to finish it off permanently, but that non-conformity does have to be resolved. Then we have this We have the new connectivity index, sorry. We have the new connectivity index that does require a certain ratio, but it gives the developer an option to work through and find the things that work better, that will meet the minimums versus not. So the policy kicks in when there's extras, and then that gives the discretion then for things that are extra above what the ordinance minimally requires for the council to give a yay or a nay based on the criteria in the policy.
To translate that down to good layman's terms, so we're not going to require a stub, or they got option to do a cul-de-sac, for example?
It's going to depend on each specific site and the circumstances, but there is a minimum number of connections to be made in each circumstance. But it's not necessarily that every connection has to be made, and it's those ones that are above the minimum that the council can weigh in on as to whether or not to require them or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions from the council members?
Comment on the stubs real quick. I think that a change in when we're seeing some of these projects and their layouts and things will help give us better headlights on addressing them sooner. So I think that to address your point.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank you for the good questions. I also want to commend Mr. Triesenberg and his staff for the long hours they put into these millions and millions of words. And they're overwhelming as a mass. But when we're trying to make a decision on a specific case, every single word is critical. And I can't thank you enough for the time and attention that the council members have paid. The planning commission spent an hour plus reviewing this after all those others, and still found little corrections, which, well, thank goodness, one more thing we won't have to argue about later. So many eyes have gone into this, many brains, and we all greatly appreciate the work you do. It makes our work much easier later on when we're on this paragraph, this sentence, these three words, and they're what they mean. They're what you meant for them to say. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll ask if there's a motion to adopt this ordinance. There's a motion from Ms. Behringer to adopt the ordinance.
Second motion.
Second from Mr. Vance. There's a motion and a second. Let me ask those in favor of adopting this ordinance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? No opposed, passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Triesenberg. A good evening's work.
Yes, thank you. And I'll get the town clerk an amended version of the ordinance with the changes that you all approved.
Yes.
If Mr. Triesenberg could stay for just a few minutes as we go into council reports. I have questions about some projects that are coming up in the very near future, and his expertise will be needed and advice. Can I go ahead with that?
Are you available for that? I tell you what, just to go with the agenda.
Are they related to Highway 50? Okay, because Leo's going to do a report on that. Okay.
Yeah, well, we have several reports to come here, and I'm going to suggest that we go through those. I don't think any of them are too lengthy, but to stay with the agenda, let's go with committee reports and see if there are any council members who have a committee report for us this evening. See, that was pretty quick, wasn't it? Okay. And we do have some items on the manager's report, Mr. Dickerson.
Right. Council, Mayor and Council, just a few things to mention. First, a reminder of the retreat next week, the 15th and 16th. And our plan is to get your agenda to you on Thursday. Police have a number of events coming up this weekend, the Polar Plunge. So if you want to donate to Special Olympics and dive into a cold pool, you can on Saturday. They also have a barbershop event where they'll be interacting with the community and talking through issues with the patrons there. So the barbershop rap session on Saturday, February the 17th at 10 o'clock at Heavenly Cuts Barbershop in Forest Hills Drive. Just to name a few more items here, On February 9th, there will be dinner and jazz with Sindra Fiore, I think I pronounced that right, at the Garner Performing Arts Center at 7 p.m. And we have, we have an electronic recycling event this Saturday coming up from 8 to 1 at Public Works. And they will be taking electronic recycling, but not appliances. So if you have any questions or want to see the list of things that are acceptable, go to the town website. And like I mentioned before, I'll get town engineer Harrison to do a overview of some of the things coming down Highway 50 that's going to cause for the road to be improved. I think we had a question from Councilmember Singleton about that, so.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. I appreciate you giving me a few minutes to go over some of these things. I know it's probably not the first time that any of you have had a question about things going on Highway 50 because the traffic and improvements there have been a topic of conversation for a long time. I think what I will do is pull up my maps if I can. That way we can be looking at it while I go through a few things. Just to start, a couple of big picture. The town currently does not have any road improvement projects on NC 50. So what I'm going to do is just go through a list of things that are either NCDOT run projects along that corridor or related to private development so that you have an idea of everything that is planned in the near to a little bit further future along NC 50 within the Garner area. Probably more colorful than we need it. It's Jeff's style map up here. Let's see. All right. So one more kind of big picture thing, because I know not everybody listening, and maybe some of y'all aren't as familiar as we are who work with it every day. DOT has a lot of different ways of funding projects, and one of them that you'll hear me talk about a couple times tonight is what we call bonus allocation projects. These projects actually came out of the Strategic Transportation Investments Law that was passed in 2013, and it requires DOT to provide incentives to local governments to either participate in transportation projects or to support tolling highway projects. So as part of the NC 540 project, the NCDOT had $100 million of bonus allocation funding that is being used for other transportation improvements within the general area of the 540 project. So that's where some of these are coming from. Those projects do get, NCDOT chooses the projects that they think are appropriate. Those have to get entered into the Transportation Improvement Program, so that means they have to go through the Metropolitan Planning Organization for selection, just like any of the other projects that would come through DOT and happen locally would do. So just where you know where some of those are coming from. These are improvements because all these local communities are supporting their implementation of this large toll project. So in return, they do additional improvements in that vicinity to help with other transportation issues. All right, so we are going to start up on the north end here. I think this is one that y'all are pretty familiar with. Pretty soon, NCDOT will be replacing the NC 50 bridge over US 70. I am still told they plan to let that this spring, which means they'll receive bids on it this spring. They are still in utility relocation. That project is planned to have a duration of 18 to 24 months, so it will be quite some time, but they will be building a parallel bridge, so there will be no complete closure of 50 in that area. So that'll be one of the first things that you see coming up. Moving south a little bit. NCDOT has one of those bonus allocation projects at the intersection of Timber Drive and Benson Road. And this project will, so currently there is, if you're going north on 50, coming up to Timber, there is a lane that extends past Timber, but then ends when you get to the first driveway up here past the credit union. This project will extend that second lane all the way up to the new Rand extension in this area, and then do some pedestrian improvements as well. So they will be extending that lane. Probably worth mentioning also that DOT and Campo, the plans for NC 50 in this whole area is to be a 4-lane divided highway. So any of these improvements are intended to get that whole section closer to that. So this will give us the 2 through lanes all the way up to New Rand.
Just on that one side going north, 2 lanes?
Yes, that's what's proposed for now. Right here in the same vicinity, I'm sure y'all remember we had a proposal for a Duke Medical Facility on this parcel here. That is kind of on hold. I think they're looking at some things internally, Duke is, but as far as we know, it's still intended to move forward. Their obligation as part of the development is to widen just a short section of 50 here because they don't have much frontage, but what it will allow is for that second lane that DOT is extending to the north to be extended to the south a little further as well. And then they'll be doing some improvements along this New Rand Road extension also. And then directly adjacent to that, we had a development project that is partially intended to be a Bojangles closer to Evolve Drive, and then a second, as of now, undetermined commercial development on the other half of the lot. With the Bojangles approval, they were committed to widening this stretch of 50, which would be from the end of Duke's improvements down to Evolve Drive. So with all of these, now we have that full 2 lanes along with the curb and gutter and sidewalk from Evolve Drive all the way up to New Rand Road extension on the north side. Feel free to interrupt me if you guys have any questions as we go before I get ahead of myself. All right, we're gonna go a little further. Okay, so this next NCDOT project is one of the larger. This is a bonus allocation project as well. It was originally intended to just improve the Rand Road and Benson Road intersection. Anybody who's driven in that area at a high traffic time knows that you will sit on Rand Road forever to turn left on 50. So they intended to extend that turn lane. This project has since been pretty drastically expanded in scope. So it's now looking at widening the road to a 4-lane divided all the way from Rand up north of Buffalo. This includes not really replacing, but extension of the bridge on Benson Road. So where we have a 2-lane bridge now, they will actually build a second 2-lane bridge so that you have 4 lanes total, 2 in each direction. So that would improve that entire stretch of road to the 4-lane divided section, including the bridge. Also adding pedestrian accommodations, which includes the multi-use path, the wider asphalt path on the west side of Benson, which is what we have in our plans. So that's a larger project that will take some time. It's currently in design, but it is all being funded by bonus allocation funding. And then right here in the same area, you all have probably seen the VA clinic is going up pretty quickly out there. Along with that, they will widen their section of 50, so they are coordinating with the DOT project to do the widening along their frontage on that side. In addition, they'll also be improving this part of Arbor Green, so they will be basically rebuilding that part of Arbor Green and installing a traffic signal at Arbor Green and Benson.
A question about the north of Buffalo.
Sure.
And you said it would go up to that. And if my memory serves, it's the width of the water treatment plant is wide enough to do that 4-lane. It looks like it's built out.
It is wider there.
But then it stops in the same parcel that's still City of Raleigh, right? And so that would never get developed privately.
Right.
Okay.
At one time, they didn't own that because we had a proposal for sheets at the corner of New Bethel and Highway 50. And so after that failed, he talked with Mr. Tart, talked with Raleigh, and they bought the rest of the property. So that's why it's the odd stop there.
In that regard, where Bethel Road comes in right there, and there's an extra lane there going north also. If you come off Bethel, turn right on 50, and it runs a good ways up, because you see a lot of people hitting it. You would think, and I'm just dreaming maybe here, but like where you're talking about, Mr. Dillinger, from there all the way up, that could be 4-lane from, I still thought they would have done it from Buffalo Road all the way up there, 4-lane. Because so much of it has already been done. I don't understand that.
The drawback is unless you do the rest of it, you come to a pinch point. You're going from 4 to 2, and then that's the jam up. So, that's why getting that 1 lane on the east side, at least down as far as they can, helps, but it's the pinch point. It's like why they have to do the bridge first. Because if you look at traffic counts that have happened here in the past, people say, well, why are they stopping at Rand Road? The 18 to 20,000 trips that came down here, over 7,000 of them turn on Rand Road. A third of it gets out of there by Rand Road. And if you listen to traffic in the afternoon on the radio, and we're all listening to, once you get past Rand Road, traffic is moving fine, because that's the build-up, the jam up. And so improving that 4-lane should, having the free flow turn lane and improving, I'm assuming, Rand Road in front of the school, however far they go up, should help a lot. But it's hard to believe roughly a third of all the 50 traffic turns up that road.
I think, though, that to Phil's point, you talk about pinch points. If you're going from 4 back to 2, and then you're trying to get people down New Bethel Church Road, you'd want to keep it 4, because a lot of that traffic's going to be going up north. It's either going to keep going north up 50, or coming from 540 when that gets built. Then you got to direct all that traffic down New Bethel, and New Bethel's got 2 lanes, and then it has the merge, right? So you'd almost like you keep it 4 lanes all the way up to New Bethel, because otherwise you're going 4 and back. And
well, I expect that the dollars are their issue, and they're trying to alleviate them at the pressure points. Because if I recall, when the high school was built and Bryan Road School was built, they made the improvements at 50 that are all going to be done at 50 on that side. The turn lanes and so forth. Now, I believe at one time they said that the intersection with New Bethel and 50 might have a change and might widen some, but now that's not the point. Supposedly that's why it is where it is. I agree with you. On the east side, heading north, it would be nice to go at Forest, help me with the subdivisions, I'm drawing a blank, Southview and
Forest Landing.
Thank you, and take 1 lane on up, and that would be nice, but it's a dollar and cents thing. But with other traffic here now, that all won't head north on 50, it'll head south on 50 to get to 540. So that will make a difference on some of these traffic issues. That's going to be when people find out they can save, if they're trying to head down US 1 and they can save 20 or 25 minutes, instead of having to take 10 all the way to Apex, people are going to use it, toll or no toll.
It will change some traffic patterns for
Yes.
sure. So a couple things. I think, unfortunately, there's never perfect limits to a project like this, unless you could do the entire thing. But it is in pretty preliminary design, so we definitely can work with DOT to try to help places where maybe it makes more sense to make some small changes. Jeff also did just mention that this portion that we just talked about that Raleigh does own, they do have plans to use to build on some of that, and they have been told that when they do, they will have to widen that portion of the road. So that may be
great.
a great way to get it, yeah.
Like, we're supposed to have overflow parking on the other side of New Bethel Church Road also, but
Yeah.
that hadn't developed. Or Centennial Park, but that hadn't happened either.
Then a little bit further south, this area here is the site of the overlook at Stony Creek, which is a townhome development that if you drive in that area, you probably can't miss it because they just recently have been clearing, and it was very wooded, so it looks very different. That development, similar to everything else, is responsible for widening their half of 50 to half of that 4-lane section. So they will be doing that all along this vicinity. And then,
Go as far south as the Indian Creek driveway, it'll go that far? Because that's different other properties. Theirs,
I don't think they
they
have
don't go,
all of these
that project does not go all the way down the Indian Creek Trail.
This one, just these two, looks like.
Okay.
So we'll have a gap there before Indian Creek. The other change in this area, which was already made quite a while ago, but when this came in for site plan review, the town made a request for NCDOT to reduce the speed limit in this section of 50. And so it was previously, I think it was just unposted, which typically means 55 miles per hour. When it's 55 miles per hour, NCDOT won't allow traditional curb and gutter to be installed. And so we made the request for them to lower it so that we could have them install our typical section. So that section has been lowered to 50 for quite some time now. They were okay with that request. So it's been lowered in that area so that they can do the curb and gutter and sidewalk that we would like to do. And just a couple things further south. This gets a little bit out of our area, but as we all know, it becomes closer and closer every day, it seems like. It's not so far out there anymore. So at Benson and 1010, there is a bonus allocation project. I have not seen any plans or anything for this yet, but it's on their list just to do an intersection improvement. I believe adding a turn lane is what it's been advertised as. And then similarly at 50 and Cleveland School Road, there is another bonus allocation project proposed to add a turn lane to that intersection as well. And then other things that we probably foresee coming up, I mean, of course right here is the 540 interchange on 50. That's what this is the 540 right-of-way. And then we've already started to see development area of Benson come in for review, so it's likely that we will get some improvements in this area from private development as that area grows with the building of 540. And that is about it for now. I'm happy to answer any questions if you had them, or dig up any more information to provide if anyone would like additional information on any of those projects.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'm going back to, you didn't cover this and on the Fitzsimmons purview, but the ETJ, I know we're looking at bringing it down past 1010 to some extent. I know that's a real hot button right now with all the growth going on out there, because one thing about it, with the 540 bypass, every major intersection is going to develop either commercial or residential in some way, fashion or form. It's just the way it is. And to make sure we've got a handle on all that, do we have any timelines or updates on that ETJ expansion, and how far realistically is it going to go? Are we going to talk about that in a couple of weeks?
We're going to talk about that at a retreat.
At a
That's
retreat.
probably going to be the first item we discuss at the retreat on that Thursday.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh,
And you should get your packet Thursday of this week, so you'll have a preview of some of that.
Okay. How's our timeline on that, above that? I mean, do we have everything in to expand that ETJ, or where are we at, or are we proactive, or are we waiting? I'm not trying to put anybody in a bad
Jeff
spot
jump
here,
in
but
on
that's a hot topic right now.
So at the retreat, hopefully we're going to be able to have a conversation about exactly where and how far that ETJ goes, or how far you would like it to go. Then we will need to finalize the report that accompanies it. The council will need to adopt a resolution that describes that area that you want to request. And then from there, it's going to take about 10 or 11 months, more than likely.
I'd like to see it go to 42 highway. That's just me, though.
We're hemmed in by a maximum of 3 miles from our primary corporate limits, so it won't get us down that far. But
I have just a question on, you mentioned some developments down in that area and outside of our ETJ, so there's a gap between our ETJ and 540. So I imagine we're working very closely with Wake County on that and making sure we're on the same page. Describe as best you can on how that sort of balance will work until we have an ETJ expansion.
So we've been working with them throughout their planning processes over the last couple of years. I believe it was in 2021 or 22, maybe finally, that they adopted their new Plan Wake document, their comprehensive plan. And then even since then, they've embarked on a series of small area plans, and I don't know if they did this purposefully or not, but they chose a lot of them in the Garner area to do first. So we, again, have been working with them on those small area plans to try and make sure that their future land use projections and ours are matching up as close as possible. So that's probably the best that we can do right now, apart from them just potentially approving something different when it gets to their board. But
when it comes to projects down that way that have infrastructure or road improvements, how different is Wake County than what we would require?
So their infrastructure, their road improvement requirements are not as stringent as ours. But in that Plan Wake document, there's primarily 4 future kind of typologies, to use something similar to what's in our plan. They have some walkable centers, and then they have a community area. Anything that's in the community area or the walkable centers, they're basically saying to folks, you have to connect to utilities, and so then you need to go to Garner or whatever municipality. Then they have another area called Community Reserve, which they expect to be community in the future. And so with those developers, they'll talk to them and say, hey, you really should go talk to the municipality, see if it can work, but ultimately if it doesn't, then they are allowed to develop under the county standards. So a lot of our ETJ, I would expect, is going to overlap with some of that community reserve area, so that hopefully it can be brought in so that they would have to, do it to our standards.
A question for Ms. Lee in reference to several things. In reference to the areas that have been targeted, are there any areas outside of NC 50 that have been targeted for the funds that are proposed?
There are several areas all around Wake County, and I have a list that I'd be happy to share with you. I can email that to you if you'd like.
Specifically in Garner?
Let's see what else we have. We can probably, maybe I can pull it up on here so you can see it. That'd probably be easier.
Jeff, while she's looking that up, I can go down around McCullough's Crossroads throughout the country. Every road you go down, there's a Fuquay Varina city limit sign just out in the middle of the woods somewhere. If you got an idea what's going on with all that, I know it's not us, but what are they doing and why are they doing it?
I really couldn't tell you. I just know that they're very, very proactive with trying to make sure that folks know they're passing into Fuquay when they are.
So their ETJ is based on their city limits also, is that correct?
Yeah, so we have an annexation agreement with them. So it comes up Fanny Brown Road from the south, and then when it hits 1010, it goes over to Lake Wheeler. So we pretty well know where that boundary is going to be. That's been a long-standing agreement of at least probably 20 years now.
All right, jumping back over, there are several that are probably not exactly in town limits, but in the Garner area. We've got Old Stage and 1010. That's an intersection improvement. I think doing some widening and an addition of turn lanes, which is definitely needed there. Old Stage and Rock Service, that's a little bit out of our area, but not too far away. 1010 and Rand Road, again, out of our area, but not too far off. And then Old Stage and Legend and Old Stage and Woodland. And those are both looking at addition of turn lanes.
Also, I see White Oak Road and Hillendale Lane. Be a four signalized intersection.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that one is forward. I don't think they're still signalizing Hillendale. We can check on it. This is the original list that they proposed, so I know all of them are at different stages of moving forward or not. And then the list at the bottom is separated because these are just a different funding tier. It's regional. So that's where you'll see some of the, like NC50 at Timber, and NC50 at Rand Road, several along 42, and then the Cleveland School Road at 50 and 1010 at 50. So it looks like the majority of them in our area are along that 50 corridor, probably because it will be impacted by 540 one way or another, and it's needed. So,
two questions. The next question is there a draft schedule for when these improvements will start? Any idea yet?
I don't know on all of them. They all seem to be on different schedules. So I inquired of DOT to see if I could get an update on all of them, if they have an update on schedule for everything, but haven't gotten that back yet. So we're following the ones. Once they get into design, then we usually have a better idea because we're included in their meetings as they go. But most of these I do not have a timeline on yet.
The next question is, I guess a very important one for me, is that with all these improvements, do we have any idea will that improve the level of service that is currently on 50?
I haven't seen anything. I'm sure they have that information, but I haven't seen it for all of these projects. So we can definitely inquire about it and see what we can find out.
I'm just interested to see the improvements that'll be made with these improvements, improvement in traffic flow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Can I ask Ms. Harrison a question? The improvement on at 1010 and Old Stage Road is for some lane widening. That's not all the way from 540. That's just a portion of the intersection, correct?
Right. I
remember reading that they were going to improve the intersection, and then after 540 opened, that project was done, there was going to be project number 2 that would bring another lane all the way down, so at least be a turn lane in the middle. I don't think it's the ultimate improvement. It was supposed to, that's what I read in an article some time ago.
Yeah, I would hope. Yeah, that does sound right. I think that 540 intersection on Old Stage is pretty close to 1010 there, so hopefully they can get a pretty continuous improvement between the two.
And the improvement at 50 and Rand Road, I know that the town owns the park there and the big barn there. Do you know if they're going to have to get an additional right away from the town there? Or are they going to work on the other side of the road? I'm just curious.
They haven't talked about it yet, and it's in the very early stages of design, so they probably haven't looked at it. We did talk to them about the access to the Rand Bryan house there and making sure that they understood what access we need to maintain to that driveway and everything. But as far as right-of-way, they haven't told us anything yet. I think it's a little early for that.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? That was a fantastic presentation. A huge amount of information.
Yep.
People ride up and down that road and they see the traffic and they see the subdivisions, but they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So this was very helpful as we talk to our constituents and say, there's a lot more going on than you know.
Yeah, yep, it's.
Get on 50 and follow the cars, and you'll find out that a lot of the cars are not in Wake County and Garner, they're in Johnston County. That's a whole other story.
Yeah, we're going to put up a special toll gate for them, right?
That's what it takes.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. Well,
Thank you all.
well, fantastic presentation. Thank you very much. And we were technically during the managers.
Yeah, I'm a name a couple more events real quick. On February 24th, you have the Garner Showcase of Talent. There'll be 2 shows, one at 3 and one at 7, and that's at the Garner Performing Arts Center. And then also on March the 8th, we have a ticketed event, Mike Wiley's Brown versus Board of Education. That's at the Garner Performing Arts Center at 7:30, and he pretty much does a one-man monologue as he tells a story for that time period, that event during that time period. And we've had him here in Garner a number of times, and he does an excellent job with that. And that's kind of part of our Juneteenth, leading up to Juneteenth celebration in June, but this happens in March. And then the last thing I'd like to do is introduce our new deputy town clerk sitting in the back. She's going to join us on Monday. Her name is Rebecca Murray. So we're glad to have you here, and she's just here observing and looking at all the fun she's going to have.
Wait, thank you. Stella, can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Anything else, Mr. Dickerson?
That's it. Thank you.
That was a lot of good information there. And that brings us around to attorney reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This afternoon, I did send out an email about the Tryon Station. That's the affordable housing project, which you're providing $750,000 in financing. So they've, because of the rising interest rates, they had to restructure their financing. But they were looking for an indication from you whether you'd be generally okay with technically moving down a lien position from 3rd to 4th when they go to permanent financing. They are not going to actually borrow any more money, but it will help them to lock in a favorable interest rate for the future when they shift from construction to permanent. So if you have any concerns about that, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll put that on the consent agenda for your next meeting. The county will be approving their similar adjustment in their lien position the night before your meeting, but they are trying very hard to close by the end of the month before they would have to face perhaps another interest rate hike. So if you have any concerns about that, please give me a call or email me tomorrow.
Thank you for keeping your eye on that and looking at interest. Other items from the attorney's report.
Yeah.
Okay, and that brings us back to council comments, and we've made a few and asked a few questions. Are there any more council comments or reports? Yes, sir, Mr.
Just
Matthews.
a couple of comments. I happened to ride through historic Garner today, and there's a 3-way stop sign right down in the middle there. And a long time coming, so I stopped and brought my speed down. So that was up, and I noticed that. I had the fun, privilege, and honor. I was up at Hillsborough Elementary this past Monday. I know the group that's here the other night, the Think Small Y'all group, they're helping that school really get students happy about coming back to school and getting the attendance level up and what have you. They were out there and had all kinds of things going on, and the Garner Police was well represented, high-fiving the kids and letting them know what a fine police department we've got here in Garner, and they're there for them, and it was a great turnout. They're going to do it again next Monday, but I just want to share with everybody else just outstanding job our police are doing, and the Think Small Y'all group. That's another thing they took on. So not only business, they're helping with schools too. So it was a great morning. So
Great, and a very cool morning to be
it
out.
was. If you want to do it Monday, come on out about 8:35 or 8:40, and they'll be through. Bundle up.
All right, thank you. Any other council comments?
Have a request, if we could get an updated list of our advisory boards, the people who are filling the positions on those advisory boards, so we will know who is who. Planning Commission, Board of Adjustments, Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, and what other committees?
Parks and Rec.
Veterans.
And Veterans Affairs. If we get an updated list, I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This past Friday, I had the opportunity to visit a tiny home community in Pittsburgh, It was organized by Sig Hutchinson, one of our county commissioners. Susan Evans was also there, Cheryl Stallings, Vic Adamson, so several county commissioners were there. The Home Builders Association was out there as well. And Legion, Legion Development, I think they're a developer down in that area. And it's a tiny home community. It's really an initiative of the UNC School of Psychiatry and Social Work to create a housing community for people in mental health, various stages of mental health recovery. And I bring it up just for the one, he's doing it again this Friday. So if anybody's interested and wants to go to Pittsburgh, do that. But just to highlight how interested the county is in the issues related to housing and mental health. And it was really good to see that level of commitment from our county partners, and just good to know that they want to be a resource for us. And it was also an interesting project. I think the housing situation we're facing doesn't have one solution. And we were debating there, we're like, is this even appropriate for Wake County with land prices and all that? But it's just good to have that dialogue and those conversations, because that's the only way you'll get to solutions. So if anybody wants information, I can connect you up with Sig and go out there. And it's a good group out there. They're doing a little pilot. It's very data-driven through the university. And NC State's even done some stuff on the design and architecture side. And a couple other developer home builders have done some work too. So just let me know. But it's good to see people trying to do good work. So.
Thanks for reporting that. Thanks for taking your time and looking at new ideas and sharing those with us. Any other comments from council?
I talked with Jeff. The thing I requested earlier to talk with Mr. Triesenberg.
Okay. Would you like to talk with Mr. Triesenberg
Yes.
and make a comment? Mr. Triesenberg, would you like to talk with us?
Can you pull up the development activity map? What I'm bringing up is very important. This is not a joke. Letting y'all know, I'm not up here cutting up. This is serious business because it's pertaining to something that may or may not be discussed at our next meeting. I tell you, this development activity map's a handy little tool. It's a dandy little item. Development activity. Up top, go up top. Now, come on down, development. You know it's bad.
I'm reading right past it. I'm sorry.
The disclaimer comes up every time. I reckon that's
Yeah.
do it. I have learned that.
That's in front of you.
You go to the Creech Road area, please.
Yes, sir.
And everybody else to see these. Can you back it off just a little bit so we can see everything? There we go. Okay, my concern is we have, that was on the schedule last week, that at the February 20th meeting, we would have public hearings on Wilmington Place and 1306 Creech Road. Okay, I see that. My concern is this: if you look at all the activity of other projects on Creech Road, we kind of need to talk about this as a group, not move forward with two, and this is why. The Trine Point Apartments, which we talked about tonight, that's 176 units. Creech Road subdivision, did the council approve that, or was that a staff at staff level?
I believe that was a staff approval back in the day, because that was just a phase one of the Habitat project, but they've now expanded it.
Okay. Got Gatewood subdivision, Wilmington Place, 1306 Creech Road, Dan Dixon down here. So if you add up the units there, and this is where it gets your attention. Trine Apartments, we approved 176. The proposal for Wilmington Place is 120 units, 61 townhomes, 59 single family. Gatewood subdivision is 56 units. 1306 Creech Road is 370 units, 300 multifamily, 70 townhomes. The Dan Dixon project is a 205 townhomes. If you add those projects up, proposed units, it's 1,024 units. Well, we've already said we thought that 1,050 at the park at Garner Station was too many. This is the same number in those projects added up. And this is Creech Road. This isn't, I know somebody say, well, what about New Bethel when you voted on those things? New Bethel had Clifford to get to Bryant or Hebron Church to get you out. There's no out here. Now, will it connect to Wilmington Road one day? I don't know if that'll happen in our lifetime. Also, a concern is you see the driveways, that's where the improvements will be made. Pretty much along Creek Road will be minimal, other than Wilmington Place. They'll show a relocated Creek Road, which we'll talk about that. That's interesting. I'm assuming we're gonna have a stop sign or something there, but I reckon take the curve out and make it safer. But the concern I have is that we're gonna talk about those two projects were shown on the agenda for the 20th, but the impact of this whole area has to be considered because of, again, the number of units we're putting out there on Creek Road with minimal improvement. There's no plans to improve Creek Road. And I believe one day, and Jeff, please correct me, there'll be a tie-in from one of these projects that'll eventually, if it gets to Wilmington Road, one day, but who knows when that'll happen. And my concern is, it seems like we get the cart before the horse by putting these projects out here and not looking at the entire area. I'm assuming that Creek Road solar, which was solar years ago, is still remaining. That's not another project. That units, solar units have been on there for a long time. So my concern is if the 1,050 units were too much at the parking station, this is 1,024 units. And we really need to understand this before we talk about public hearings and discussing these other projects. Because again, with the Wilmington Place at 120, 1306 Creek Road is 370. We're at 490 right there. Dan Dixon is 205. You're at 695. Just those, plus the ones that have been approved. Again, that's 1,024 units. And I'm really concerned that we don't need to have a public hearing. We need to discuss this and staff show us all these numbers and the impact it's going to have. Because again, there's no place for them to go. Us up on Creek Road, there's no out. Trine Road is supposed to go through one day, but with Raleigh having issues with funding and roads, who knows when that'll happen. Just think about this in this very small area of an older part of town. You know, one of these projects, they're going to wrap around existing homes that have been there for years. And the two projects, they do connect, I think, by property line, but Jeff, because of the creek and the buffers, they don't touch the, what the proposals are for the residential units don't touch because of the buffers and so forth. I know there's a creek runs through there.
Right, so you've got a creek that runs here east-west between the two projects and then cuts up this way.
Yes.
And then there's another branch that cuts down south as well. So this is kind of in a pocket here. Some of the just, I guess, extra little things that I can tell you. So for Wilmington Place, that's a project that's been submitted with us since late 2020. There's been a lot of back and forth with that project, particularly with the road improvements because it is complex. They are required to to pay for half of the crossing of the creek. So half of that money will be there. Unfortunately, we didn't get that from Hunter's Mark back in the day. So that other half would need to be made. And then I was just talking with Leah, I believe Wilmington Road townhomes, because you do have that section of Wilmington Road back here in Hunter's Mark that is built, it's just not used today. They are making some utility connections back here, so that will be at least connected partially for two-way traffic. So it's really that other half of the bridge that would be needed to make the Wilmington connection so at least whole for two-way traffic. But then you're right, 1306 Creech has very little road frontage, and you see that it's a classic case of when we were talking earlier about parts of the ETJ potential expansion area and road improvements in the southern part. It's a very typical kind of thing where you see homes that line these main roads, but then they have all this land back behind them, and ultimately folks keep their homes up on the road and then they want to develop back behind, and there's just not a lot of frontage then to require the improvements. So we have to use the TIAs where we can legislatively to try to get some of those additional improvements. Dan Dixon, I have not seen a lot of movement in a while on that one. I don't think it's gone away, but I think there's some reconsideration going back and forth with that. That does have an outlet onto Johnson Street as well. So I think the majority, what they're envisioning, would use a lot of Johnson Street because there's really not.
So it backs up to the Avery Park subdivision, and it's connected to Johnson Street. Like that.
Oh, real big.
But it does have the outlet as well to Creech. Yeah.
Stubs we're talking.
On the, if you pull back a little, Jeff,
Yep.
in looking at the site plans that we're in on here, both the Creech Road and the Wilmington Place projects, all the development is on the west side, or I'm going to say north, southeast, on the left side or the west side. The behind it, the back half is where they can't build. But the development's all, I'll say my favorite term, rammed and crammed in the front on both of them. A lot of it is this huge buffer. So there's a person I grew up with who used to own this project down here. She crossed the bridge. They owned one of those lots, and I can tell you, as a boy walking back in there, we walked all the way up to Jones Sausage Road through the woods on more than one occasion. It was a long time ago, but anyway, I walked all that property a long time. That came before us. The Wilmington Place project came before the town back in the 90s for apartments, and it never got rezoned. So my concern is, again, we got proposals coming that are proposed to drop all this number of residential units. What's for Garner Road? What are we thinking about with Creech Road? That's just a concern that, I couldn't move forward on the other two projects without knowing more about these projects that are here. And even though you hadn't heard anything on the Dan Dixon project, you said the Wilmington Place has been here since 2020. So, these projects may start to move, all of them. And I just foresee numerous issues because, we know Trine Point's going to be built. That's a fact. We've approved it, and so is the Creech Road, the Creech Road subdivision. They're both approved because they're in the green. So, again, I have
a question about, you mentioned they'd pay for half that bridge. Who's supposed to pay for the other half?
So that's, we made the text amendment in the past because otherwise it fell 100% to public. And so we introduced that text amendment several years ago to make sure that we were getting the requirements, from the private development. So given that's a DOT road, it'll either need to be a TIP project, something that's programmed through their Transportation Impact Improvement Program. But my guess is that depending on what kind of bridge, and is it just a culvert? Probably not.
Wetlands going through there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of buffer.
Yeah. It narrows in one place. They're trying to take advantage of that. I assume that's why they came up with the alignment that they did back in the day with Hunter's Mark. But if not, we would need to probably try to pursue LAP funding for that.
How much? I'm sure the developer knows how much it's going to cost them to double. What are they going to pay? Because that's half. The other half's us or somebody. Like how many millions of dollars for that bridge?
Leah's saying that their estimate for the whole thing was $3 million.
And a half. It's just funny to look at I looked at the layouts in Wilmington Road extension, and it's going through the absolute probably worst part of where you could try to go through that creek area. And when you look at it, you're like, oh, well, you'd have a better job doing like this Joel Street and a small crossing and you probably end up with a situation where a landowner doesn't want to sell. Well, that's too bad. That's the best option, but it's like sort of that putting that round peg in that square hole sometimes where it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And $1.5 million is not an insignificant amount of money for really something that's going to benefit. I spoke with Mr. Singleton very briefly this afternoon about the traffic flow in this area after all these improvements are done. It's hard to imagine what that looks like because I imagine a lot of traffic would start coming south and then they're going over to Calabar, backing up there right in front of Amazon and Hunter's Mark because they're trying to get to 40 quicker than going another way. So I'm also concerned about we need more internal capacity to map some of these transportation impacts and flow. Because that would be the goal, to make that connection. It's easier to get to 40. But at the same time, Jones Sausage Road is a mess around Amazon, and it's going to continue to just a lot of impact questions and concerns. Thinking about.
Yeah, one other thing that I've been wondering too, and I don't know that we've gotten really any definitive data from anybody on this, but as part of the 40 widening, they did some major improvements to the culverts for this stream right here. It used to be just, I think, a 1-barrel culvert, and I think they put in 3 or 4 now. And I wonder how much that's changing, given that there's better flow, because you can tell from the mapping that when 40 was built, it created a log jam and kind of expanded the floodplain on the west side of 40, and wetlands developed over time. And I'm wondering how much that is changing with those improvements, but we haven't seen any. To my knowledge, I don't think we've seen anything really from that.
Jeff, still in some of Gray's time, if you don't mind. The developments we're looking at on Creeks Road, it was made mention that one was been on the books since 2020, and obviously quite a few years have passed. And I realize sometimes these projects get put on the back burner for different reasons, or somebody else buys the project. Anything that we approve, and I know it's say that one particular project, how long is there a timeline of expiration on what we approve? If it's not built out in that time, it goes back and somebody's got to come back and start all over, and we get another chance at that?
There is, but it's not difficult to keep a project alive, I'll just say that. The official timeline is usually 2 years on projects like this, but as long as they're making a submittal, that clock starts over every time they make a submittal. So it's very few projects, plus we give them an option to ask for up to 2 one-year extensions. So it takes a while for a project to actually hit that threshold. And then during COVID, the legislature just suspended the time clock altogether. So yeah, it's not, like I say, this project for Wilmington Place, they've continued to make submissions. It hasn't been quick because they've had to deal with some different things. But they have a landowner too that I don't think is to just let things go as they do. They're not in any hurry. So
I can add to that. Once an application comes in, then under state law, they have permit choice. So you can't change the rules on that. And as Jeff said, as long as they keep submitting and don't let it lapse, they can keep permit choice going. Then once they get to an approval, they get vested rights. Again, that has a time frame, but in some cases that could be from 2 years to 5 years. That they would then have, under state law, a statutory right to keep that approval going. But there are times when it will eventually lapse if they do nothing.
If somebody else buys that property from the person that actually initiated the permit, does that void that permit and that new owner have to start over?
No, I mean, for the most part, both permit choice and vested rights run with the land, regardless of the applicant or the property owner.
Okay.
I have more questions, but I think to Mr. Singleton's point, it requires a little more investigation, because also you got Wilmington Road, and it's like, well, where do those improvements start? Because they don't completely align with the property on the east side. And so if you're going to make that an actual town road, there seems to be more than just a bridge improvement that would need to be done. Just eyeballing it and having driven down there before, there's not really much road down there once you get past a certain point. And so it's like, well, who's responsible for completing the full thoroughfare of the road? So I think there's just we need more opportunity to discuss in the future on this.
As for clarification, Ms. Harrison, you talked about that there's some pavement down there when they did Hunter's Mark. Is that just 2 lanes and curb and gutter, or what kind of improvements did they do there? I cannot remember. It's been a long time.
I know that feel free to chime in. I know that in the back part of the subdivision, like, they actually took the right-of-way completely onto their property, so it is a full roadway from one side to the other, because it was completely on their property. Yeah, 'cause you see right here, the right-of-way comes out, and this little sliver here was actually part of the Hunter's Mark property. So this part of the road here is completely built from side to side, as I understand.
Where is it built? Go to the image, one of the images, because that's not.
Oh, this isn't going to get me that far.
So yeah, there's no road there.
So they've done some, I don't know if this is water or.
But who's going to do the rest on the south side to get to the other part of Wilmington?
This one you can see it better. Now there's the stormwater inlets in the curb, so it's the full roadway.
But zoom it out.
Yeah.
Zoom it out. Where it stops right there.
Yeah, so there's a piece, yeah, there's a piece here. Wilmington.
It keeps going. If you keep going south.
Right. These townhomes here, though, they are building 2-lane traffic through, though, to Long Bay. So it's getting that far.
Have they started? A lot of townhome projects in the area have kind of put themselves on hold indefinitely.
They've started, I think, some clearing. But yeah, they're still moving. They've been moving forward pretty actively.
Mr. Singleton, you bring up some very serious questions that we need to look at in a lot more detail, for sure. We have a retreat coming up. We have the ability to do some small group study sessions with some folks on the planning. I'm going to suggest we take a little deeper dive into exactly the questions you're asking. I think they're very, very relevant and very important.
Well, in leading up to that, though, again, these two were shown on the last meeting as being on the February 20th agenda. Do we keep them on the agenda, or do we ask that we need more time to study this area before we have them come forward? That's my concern. Is we're going to have a public hearing and say, well, guess we need to talk about this more. We're going to delay it until May or April or whatever. This is my, should we stop it now? Or I'm not sorry, say stop it, I'm sorry. Should we pause it now and get more information and then work with staff to get it back on the schedule?
That's an excellent question, and I think we need to address that, if not here, certainly in the next few days, and take a look at our agenda where we want it to be. I'm not asking for a formal motion. I'm just observing that you have some very legitimate concerns, and we might want to rethink exactly when certain items hit our agenda, that we are well prepared to speak about them and the overall consequences in the area.
Right, and again, you can go on here on the development map and click on these, and they'll show you the site plan. So that's extremely helpful. There's the Creek Road site plan right there.
I think the other thing is the timing of all these different developments and when they're going to roll in, because the Creek Road, I guess, are coming together at the same time because they're a little mutually dependent, but maybe we still might need to evaluate them separately, or maybe they only can happen together. So I think that's part of, the coordination of when these projects are coming in and when we expect them to come online, and the improvements and other costs for bridges and things like that we need to, think of. I guess it's either sort of maybe replace those public hearings with that sort of North Garner, Creech Road conversation and push them back, or I think that we don't want to drag it out. The sooner we have the conversation, the sooner we inform our applicants as to what we're doing. But I think having the broader conversation is helpful before we have a public hearing.
I think you've made a very good point. I think we need to look at this very closely in the next few days and decide what our agenda will be for the 20th and what's on there.
Mr. Vance has been very quiet. I didn't know if he had an opinion or thought.
Oh, well, I agree with the further analysis, honestly, and how to do that. I guess that's the question as to how much time it's going to take to do that, to make sure. My biggest thing will be to keep it on, try to keep all on schedule, and looking at it in detail, trying to look at the staff or some type of response as to what's being requested, if that's a reasonable request, to look at it and try to analyze what's being said, so that we can have a better idea of how to move forward with these the various pretty complex development projects. I just want to know if that's reasonable to ask for that time. At that time, more time will be needed, or less time will be needed. Just trying to get an idea, possibly. Any idea?
Yes. Point well made. Well made, Mr. Singleton. And again, without an active motion, I think we do need to take a hard look at our agenda over the next few days and make sure we're not biting off more than we can chew, or that we're not moving ahead on individual projects without considering the total picture of the projects in that area. So,
And one thing, the Wilmington Place project does have what looks like a significant realignment of Creech Road. So that's something that we need to talk about, because you're taking out the curve, but it looks like, I'm assuming there's going to be a stop there and turn right. And I mean, I don't see it all on here, but it also shows that subdivision connecting to the Gatewood subdivision. That ought to be interesting feedback from them, since that subdivision's there for 40 years, and we're going to connect to a stub out there. I don't know what their thoughts would be. It may be good, may be bad. I don't know, but I don't think they'll be thrilled about it. But anyway, there's a lot going on in this real small area. That's my concern, and the impact it's going to have in the long run.
okay. Thank you very much. Excellent points. Great information. And I think it's time that we need to consider moving into a closed session. We have some issues regarding some litigation that need to be reviewed. And at this time, I'd like to ask if there's a motion and a second to move to the closed session.
So moved.
Ms. Berry, make the motion. Is there a second?
Does the site
To go to the closed session.
the site needs to be made for the closed session?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor of moving to the closed session?
What Mr. Vance is saying is that the citation needs to be noted specifically, because we're going into closed session. That's down there.
May section 143-318.11A3 of the North Carolina General Statutes.
Thank you for adding that important information. Motion's been made and seconded, and I'm going to ask all in favor of moving into that closed session signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By nay? None. It passes unanimously. We will close this session and move into the closed session. Thank all of you loyal citizens for sticking it out all the way through. We should give you a perfect attendance pin or the Iron Butt Award. And as we return from the closed session of the February 6, 2024 regular council meeting, we will reopen the regular session in here and to see if there are any other comments or questions or motions from council members.
Move we adjourn.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just,
Backtrack.
just to report that the council met in closed session with attorney and staff to receive information and give direction on the handling or settlement of a claim or potential litigation.
Thank you for that summary, and I think now a motion is in order.
So moved.
Mr. Singleton moves and Mr. Matthews seconds the motion to adjourn the regular meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will close the regular meeting now. Thank you for coming.